Welcome to Wise Elders Stories channel. Subscribe to Wise Elders Stories channel for more valuable insights. Have you ever experienced the sting of betrayal from those you've devoted yourself to? Picture a life where, after pouring decades of your time, energy, and heart into creating a future for your loved ones, they turn away just when you need them most. After a lifetime of sacrifices, you find yourself isolated, deserted by those you believed would always stand by you. It's a heartbreaking truth that many seniors confront, often suffering in silence. In today's video, we will explore a poignant story that may strike a chord with many. This narrative delves into themes of betrayal, abandonment, and the stark truths of family dynamics as we grow older. Yet, it also unfolds a tale of personal growth, resilience, and independence. It emphasizes the necessity of establishing boundaries when those we cherish do not provide the support we seek in our moments of need. While we may yearn for assistance, there are times when we must summon the strength to depend on ourselves, as those we have invested in may not always be reliable. By journeying through this story, you will encounter the emotional challenges faced by many seniors encounter as they journey through their later years. You'll gain insightful lessons on steering clear of common pitfalls, uncovering the importance of financial independence, and recognizing emotional resilience as a vital strength in aging. This video transcends mere survival. It's about flourishing, safeguarding your peace, and crafting a life rich in fulfillment, even in the absence of external support. If you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do so and activate the notification bell. Your support means everything to me, and I truly appreciate it. If you found this video meaningful, please consider liking and sharing it with others. Together, we can spread these important messages. If you find the subject matter compelling, I would love for you to leave a comment with a 1, if not, feel free to comment 0 and let me know what topics you'd like me to explore further. Your feedback is invaluable in helping me improve and create content that resonates with you. Now, let's get started. After graduating from college, Emily and I, looking ahead and crafting plans for our future, we had always envisioned having children. However, we both concurred that it would be wise to wait until our careers were stable and our finances secure. In the early years of our marriage, life was a whirlwind of work, late nights at the office, business trips, and juggling school for further certifications. We were ambitious and resolute, and despite the long hours, we understood this was the route to establishing a solid foundation for the life we aspired to. We were motivated, but after a decade of perseverance, the fruits of our labor began to manifest. We had crafted a life that filled us with pride, a warm, inviting home, a dependable vehicle, and a profound sense of achievement. At that juncture, we relished our existence as a couple, with no desire to complicate our dynamic by introducing anyone else, including children. Our home served as our haven, and we cherished the tranquility it provided. There were moments when venturing out felt burdensome. On those occasions, we embraced the comfort of staying in. If we craved a leisurely morning, we indulged in it. If cooking felt like a chore, we opted for dining out instead. Or even grabbed takeout, we embarked on spontaneous trips whenever the mood struck us. No schedules, no obligations, just the sheer joy of living without the weight of parental duties. It was blissful. However, as we approached our 30s, both sets of parents began to nudge us toward the idea of starting a family. Their concerns about our future as we aged prompted them to advise against waiting too long. Yet, we had made a deliberate choice to savor a few more years of freedom, and we both concurred that after all those years, after making sacrifices to build our careers, we felt we deserved a moment of tranquility before diving into the realm of parenthood. Most of our peers had already welcomed children by this point, yet we often witnessed their struggles. Their lives seemed consumed by stress, juggling long hours at work, tending to sick kids, and sacrificing precious sleep just to survive each day. That was not the life we envisioned for ourselves. We didn't want to exchange our valued lifestyle for the chaos and strain of raising children, at least, not just yet. But then, one day, everything shifted when John came home. That evening, he returned from work unusually quiet. I inquired about his well-being, but initially, he offered little in response, merely sitting on the couch, lost in thought, appearing drained. I suspected he might be unwell, but the truth was far more intricate. He revealed that he had encountered an old college friend, a woman named Lisa, who had once thrived in her career. During their conversation, he couldn't help but observe how much she had changed. She appeared years older than she had just a few years prior. She bore the tired expression of someone who had endured much, her face revealing the marks of time in ways I had not anticipated. After reconnecting, John shared that Lisa had become pregnant shortly after our graduation. She had stepped away from her job to nurture her child, but upon her return, she found her position had been taken. Starting anew in a significantly lower role, she faced the added burden of often being required to work overtime while caring for a sick child, with little opportunity for respite. Her parents did what they could to assist her. Were burning out and it all took a toll on her. Eventually she had to quit her job entirely to stay home and care for her child full-time. Watching her career and self-worth slip away, this conversation weighed heavily on both of us. I could feel the fear and concern in John's voice as he recounted Lisa's story. I too began to fear what the future would look like if we decided to have children. I had always valued my career, and the thought of giving it all up, watching my opportunities slip away as I struggled with the overwhelming the weight of parenting responsibilities filled me with dread. I came to understand that raising children might not bring the joy I once envisioned. Rather, it could spiral into fatigue, frustration, and even despair, much like Lisa's experience. John and I voiced our concerns late into the night. He worried about the physical demands it would impose on him, while I was anxious about losing my career and the personal identity I had painstakingly crafted. We both felt engulfed by the notion that becoming parents could strip us of our freedom. Happiness, a treasure we had fought so hard to attain, led us to a difficult crossroads, the choice to live child-free. This decision was not made lightly, especially with the incessant pressure from our parents. They voiced their concerns, arguing that as we aged, we would find ourselves without anyone to care for us. Their fears centered on the notion that without children, we would face loneliness in our later years, devoid of support. Yet, we had conducted our research and were resolute in our choice. We discovered that having children did not always equate to guaranteed assistance in old age. Many individuals with children still faced solitude in their twilight years. Living alone or confronting the prospect of abandonment in later years, we held the belief that as long as we maintained good health, a stable pension, and sufficient savings, we would be all right. If the worst were to happen, a nursing home could always be an option. Our decision was resolute. We chose not to adopt, as bringing an infant or an older child into our lives carried its own uncertainties and risks. Thus, we pressed on with our plans, channeling our energy into our careers, saving for retirement, and prioritizing our health and happiness. Our free time was spent. We embraced the activities that brought us joy, like traveling, exercising, and cherishing quality moments together. While our friends were busy raising children, we savored our freedom. If you're still watching this video and find these insights valuable, please leave a comment below to let me know you're with me. I always felt that abandoning a career I cherished for the sake of having children was out of the question. The idea of sacrificing my professional identity and the fulfillment I had tirelessly built was daunting. I've witnessed it unfold for others, like my friend Lisa, whose life transformed entirely after she embraced motherhood. Her journey heightened our caution about starting a family. Observing her relinquish so much of herself made me acutely aware that the price of children might exceed what I was prepared to pay. I feared becoming ensnared in the same despair she faced, feeling confined by the obligations of parenting while compromising my own joy. John and I laid bare our most profound anxieties. He was apprehensive about the physical pain and emotional shifts accompany the journey into fatherhood, and I found myself grappling with the fear of losing my career and sense of self-worth. Neither of us was willing to relinquish the life we had crafted together, the freedom, the autonomy, the sense of achievement. Thus, we made the decision to remain child-free, a choice that brought us tranquility, despite the understanding that it might be challenging for others to grasp. Our decision faced considerable opposition from both sets of parents, who expressed concern that as we aged, we would lack someone to care for us or manage the responsibilities that come with growing older. Aging brings certain realities, such as the need for funeral arrangements. They urged us to reconsider our choice, but we had already conducted our research. We discovered that depending on children for care in old age is often not a dependable option. Many individuals with children still find themselves living alone in their later years, as their children may be too busy or far away to provide assistance. Having children does not ensure security or comfort in old age. Our perspective was straightforward: as long as we maintained our health, had a stable pension, and sufficient savings, we believed we could manage our lives. In our later years, we envisioned a sense of comfort, knowing that if we couldn't care for ourselves, options like moving into a nursing home were available. While it wasn't the ideal scenario, it was a solution that allowed us to feel in control of our fate. We were determined not to make such a significant life decision out of fear of the future. Our parents proposed adopting a child to ensure we had someone to look after us when we passed, but that idea didn't sit well with us. Whether it was adopting a young child or an older one, it felt like it came with its own set of complexities. We faced our own challenges and emotional risks, yet we stood firm in our choice to live without children. While many friends devoted their time to raising kids, we prioritized saving for retirement. Our days were filled with exercise, reading, and nurturing our mental and physical well-being, understanding that good health was essential for self-sufficiency. We believed that children were not a prerequisite for happiness or fulfillment in later life, and we were assured that the path we had chosen was the right one for us. Everything appeared to align perfectly. Our plan was unfolding seamlessly. We embraced early retirement, granting us ample time to relish life while indulging in hobbies such as crafting, gardening, and cherishing moments with our pets. We even dedicated time to volunteer at a local senior center, providing assistance and companionship to those in solitude, particularly those lacking family support. Initially, a sense of pride enveloped us regarding our decision. We were convinced we had chosen wisely, allowing us to savor our retirement in tranquility, liberated from the burdens and challenges of child-rearing. However, then came a shift. Years ago, my life took an unexpected turn when Emily suddenly passed away. Her death was a shock, completely out of the blue, leaving me feeling empty and lost. It felt as if the ground had been ripped out from under me. I had never imagined this would happen. We had planned for so much. Yet, I found myself confronting the harsh reality of life without her. All the freedoms we had enjoyed together now felt meaningless in the face of this immense loss. For the first time, I truly understood the vulnerability of being alone. Emily's passing left the house steeped in an unsettling silence. The laughter, the chatter, the warmth we once shared had vanished. I had always found comfort in my solitude, even relishing it at times. I appreciated the peace, the quiet of my own company, and the freedom to follow my own schedule. But now, the silence felt like a heavy weight. I couldn't bear the thought of being alone all day. There was no one to converse with, no one to share those fleeting moments. I began to concoct reasons to step outside, seeking any distraction to fend off the encroaching emptiness. One day, while out for a walk to clear my mind, injuring myself was an unexpected turn of events. I twisted my ankle badly, and the pain led me to the hospital for a few days. Lying in that sterile hospital bed, I experienced a profound sense of loneliness and helplessness unlike anything I had felt before. The entire ordeal heightened my awareness of vulnerability. Each day, I observed other patients receiving visits from family members, children, grandchildren, and siblings, filling their rooms with warmth, laughter, and the solace of knowing someone cared. Meanwhile, I remained there alone, with no visitors, no family, nothing. Hit me harder than I expected. I found myself envious of those whose families came to visit them, they had a support system, a network of people who cared and could help when needed. I was left in the silence of my thoughts, wishing things were different. Once I was discharged, I realized that I couldn't keep living like this. The loneliness was consuming me, and I needed to do something about it. I began thinking seriously about my future, what would happen when I needed help, when I was older and no longer able to take care of myself. It became evident to me that a nursing home might be the only option. I didn't want to wait until I was too frail to make the choice myself, so I decided to move into a well-known nursing home. At first, everything seemed fine, the facilities were decent, and the staff appeared friendly enough. However, as time went on, I began to feel uncomfortable. I quickly noticed a pattern. The residents who had regular family visits were treated with much more care and respect. They had someone to speak up for them, someone to ensure their needs were met. For those of us without family, the neglect was palpable. At times, I found myself reprimanded by the staff for merely seeking basic help. It was evident that they believed there was no one to answer to, no one to advocate for us. This realization sent a shiver down my spine. I could not remain in an environment where I was treated so poorly simply due to the absence of visitors. After 2 months, I made the decision to leave. I gathered my belongings and returned home, but the experience forced me to reevaluate every aspect of my life. I had always thought that living child-free was the right choice, but now I found myself questioning that belief. It wasn't just about care in old age, it was about emotional support. Having children meant having someone to rely on, someone who would stand by you no matter what. Some argue that having children doesn't guarantee you'll be taken care of when you're older, and maybe that's true. Yet, living without children feels like a constant reminder of how alone you are. I didn't think I needed children when I was younger. I was focused on enjoying my freedom. Living life according to my own choices has brought me to a realization about the trade-offs involved. The challenges of raising children can appear overwhelming, yet those same children can evolve into a vital support system as one ages. Reflecting on my past, I recognize that my choice to forego parenthood was somewhat short-sighted. The adage of enduring hardship for future joy resonates deeply with me now. In my quest for freedom and self-fulfillment, I overlooked the genuine risk of experiencing loneliness and regret in later years without children. What I once valued as freedom has now morphed into a sense of isolation. I didn't foresee this, but now, in my later years, I truly grasp the significance of family more than ever. I want to encourage young people to embrace marriage when the moment feels right and to welcome children when they can. Life naturally guides us toward these milestones, and it's vital to appreciate the importance of pursuing them. Having children is not merely about building a family, it's about ensuring a future filled with emotional support, love, and connection. These elements are fundamental for a fulfilling life. Reflecting on my journey, I can now recognize how crucial these choices are. Establishing a strong base for the years to come. In the next segment of this video, I will recount the tale of a 75-year-old man relying on his savings in his twilight years. At first glance, his life seems to be quite comfortable, yet hidden challenges lurk beneath the surface, many of which may come as a surprise. A common misconception is that if a senior has sufficient savings, they will experience a carefree old age. People often assume that basic necessities like food, transportation, or bill payments will no longer be a concern. The prevailing notion is that with a healthy nest egg, life becomes straightforward and having savings in old age certainly enhances living conditions, but does it genuinely assure comfort and happiness? The answer is more intricate than it appears. Allow me to introduce Mr. Charles Turner, a 75-year-old man who has dedicated much of his life to achieving financial stability for his later years. Charles possesses a pension that adequately covers his monthly expenses, owns a modest home, and has saved meticulously throughout his life. On paper, Charles appears to have all the essentials for a comfortable retirement, and he should be able to unwind and enjoy his golden years, but the reality he has come to realize is far different. My name is Charles Turner, and I'm 75 years old. I receive a modest pension each month, enough to cover my basic needs, and I own a small home. I thought that after retirement, life would be simple. I thought I would finally have the time to rest, enjoy hobbies, and spend time with my children and grandchildren. Several years ago, I was even compensated for the sale of my parents' old house, an amount that should have given me a little cushion for my retirement. It appeared I was destined for a tranquil and secure existence, yet I discovered that relying on my savings has proven to be more difficult than I anticipated. One would assume that with a home and savings, I could relax, but the reality is that my later years have been fraught with hardship. Some days, it feels as if my life is more constricting than it ever was. Occasionally, I observe elderly individuals living on the streets, foraging for food, and I can't help but think they might have it easier than I do. At least they have the company of others. The solitude I feel is more intense than I ever anticipated. Reflecting on it brings tears to my eyes, as I long for a different reality. If you're still watching this video and find these insights valuable, please comment below to show your presence. My life hasn't been terrible, not at all, but one event shifted everything and led me to where I am now. 3 decades ago, I lost my wife, with whom I shared over 30 years of marriage, and her passing was a profound shock. Never fully healed from her loss. I decided against remarrying. The thought of starting anew felt overwhelming, and honestly, solitude was never my strong suit. I tried my hardest to raise our 2 children, but in retrospect, I can't claim to have done it flawlessly. I was simply navigating through what I believed was right at the time. 15 years ago, I officially stepped away from my career at the age of 60, expecting to relish life more, perhaps travel or explore new interests. Yet, retirement ushered in its own set of difficulties. Even after leaving my job, I opted for a solitary life, perhaps because I had. I've become accustomed to solitude, though perhaps it was simply too challenging to envision life any other way. In the beginning, I was fortunate that my 2 children would visit me regularly. They would help clean the house and prepare meals, and we would sit down together to share a meal. Those were warm, joyful times, and I cherished watching them grow and build their own families. Each visit filled me with love and hope for the future, and for a while, I felt a sense of peace, believing that things would only improve. But about 10 years, everything changed in an instant. I was at home, preparing lunch, when a sudden wave of dizziness hit me. My entire body ached, and it felt as though I couldn't hold on much longer. The pain was overwhelming, and I could barely stay on my feet. It took all my strength to remain conscious. Desperate, I forced myself to get up and knock on my neighbor's door. Thankfully, their son was home. Without hesitation, he took me to the hospital, where the doctors ran some tests. The results were alarming. I needed immediate surgery, and the cost was $10,000, but at that moment, I had only saved up $3,200, leaving me nearly $6,800 short. I reached out to my 2 children, hoping that after everything I had done for them over the years, they would assist me in covering the cost. To my shock and disappointment, they both refused. My son explained that he had a lot of debts and couldn't spare any extra money, while my daughter mentioned that she had just bought a new house and couldn't afford to help either. She added that if she had the money, she would have given it to me without hesitation, but instead of providing the support I desperately needed, they suggested I sell my house to pay for the surgery. I was in disbelief. This house was my sole asset, the place where I had raised my children and built my life. Selling it would leave me with nothing, rendering me homeless. I couldn't bring myself to accept their suggestion. Thankfully, a few kind friends stepped in and helped me raise enough money for the surgery. I was fortunate in that respect, but the absence of support from my children left me deeply hurt. I had given so much of myself. Over the years, I dedicated my time, energy, and financial resources to them, hoping that one day they would support me. Yet, when I needed them most, they turned their backs, their actions a betrayal I could not overlook. The very people I believed would always stand by me, my own flesh and blood, abandoned me in my time of need. In that moment, I understood that I could never depend on anyone again, not even my children. From that day forward, I vowed to save every penny for the rest of my life. I knew I had to depend entirely on my own strength to shape my future. Trusting others to support me as I had once supported them felt impossible. 5 years ago, after my surgery, I made the choice to abandon my parents' two-story home. The house had aged and fallen into disrepair, and it no longer served a purpose for me. I left it empty, and over time, it transformed into more of a burden than a blessing. Eventually, a real estate developer recognized the property's potential and decided to purchase it. I received $35,000 in compensation, which at the time felt like a fortunate stroke of luck, but as soon as I had that money in hand, my children began visiting me more often. However, their visits were not driven by genuine concern for my well-being. They came with excuses asking for financial assistance. They claimed it was for various reasons, help with bills, car repairs, and so on. Though their reasons appeared reasonable on the surface, I couldn't bring myself to lend them any money, not after what they had done when I was in need. A part of me resisted because of how they had treated me during my times of struggle, while another part understood that if I lent them money, and they didn't repay me, I would have nothing left to secure my future. I had worked too hard for my savings, and I couldn't risk it all on their problems. I had no obligation to help them, especially when they had never shown me the same support in return. So, I refused them, and as the weeks passed, their visits became less frequent. I didn't feel guilty, but I couldn't help but wonder how things had gotten to this point. I had spent my life providing for them, and in return, they couldn't even help me in my time of need. It was a painful realization, yet one that ultimately fortified my spirit. I discovered the importance of self-reliance, uncovering an unexpected sense of independence. Despite my children's opinions, I stood firm, convinced that my choices were justified. I had fought diligently for my autonomy and refused to allow anyone to exploit my efforts. As time passed, the distance in my relationship with my children became more pronounced, their calls became infrequent, and when they did come to visit, the warmth was noticeably absent. For a fleeting moment, outsiders often presumed I was childless, yet I refused to let that affect me. I had long ago resolved that as long as I had financial stability, I could manage on my own. Their presence was unnecessary, or so I told myself. However, despite my attempts to reassure myself of my choices, life had a knack for prompting me to reevaluate them. One evening, I found myself at a gathering with some old friends. We enjoyed ourselves, and naturally, I indulged a bit too much. It wasn't until I began descending the stairs that I realized the extent of my inebriation. I lost my footing and slipped, and tumbled down from a few steps. The impact was not merely painful, it was devastating. At my age, even a minor fall can lead to significant injury, and this one was no exception. I fractured my back, and the reality of my condition was far more severe than I had anticipated. By the time I reached the hospital, I was engulfed in agonizing pain. During my stay, I reached out to both of my children, not to burden them with medical expenses, but in the hope that they might visit and provide some solace. Yet, both declined, citing their busy lives, their work, and other commitments. Their families I couldn't comprehend it after all I had sacrificed for them. This was the reaction I received. It stung more than the actual injury. I had to rely on my friends for assistance with all the hospital arrangements because my children couldn't even take a few hours to support me. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons valuable, please comment 3 below to show me that you are still here with me at that moment. I was furious. How could they treat me this way after I had devoted everything to raise them? They couldn't even show up when I needed the most after I was discharged from the hospital. A relative of mine helped me find a reputable nursing home with medical services. It seemed like the right choice at the time. The nursing home had everything I needed: nurses, healthcare staff, and decent living conditions. I thought it would be a good place to recover, a place where I could be cared for properly, but as soon as I moved in I felt like just another number, another object to be dealt with. There was no warmth, no comfort. I found myself needing to assert my voice in a space that felt stifling, devoid of warmth. It resembled a storage facility for the elderly rather than a home. Many residents seemed unable to care for themselves, which filled me with a profound sense of dread about my own future. It became clear to me that I was out of place. The most painful aspect was witnessing other residents surrounded by their families, their rooms alive with love and laughter, while I remained isolated, with no visitors or calls. Each time I observed others sharing joy, it deepened my sense of solitude. The company of their children left me feeling emptier than ever. It was a crushing realization. After 2 years in the nursing home, I could no longer endure the loneliness and neglect that felt suffocating. I reached out to my friends, asking for their help to escape the nursing home and return to my own space. Once back home, I thought I could resume my life with the comfort of familiar surroundings and the support of a caregiver. Initially, I envisioned this arrangement as a way to ease my daily struggles, someone there to assist with my needs and ensure my well-being. However, it soon became evident that my caregiver, she didn't show the care I had hoped for. Her support was minimal when I needed it. Often, she seemed absorbed in her own matters, lacking genuine concern for my well-being. It was clear she was merely fulfilling her duties. Whenever I sought assistance, she would oblige, but her attitude spoke volumes. I started to sense a lack of respect from her, and I recognized that part of her demeanor stemmed from her awareness of my strained relationship with my children. She understood there was no one to advocate for me, and she exploited that knowledge. In utter solitude, I found myself grappling with a challenging situation. Eventually, I reached out to my children, hoping they would come home to assist me in resolving these issues with a caregiver. They arrived, but their visit was fleeting, lasting only a few hours. Their presence felt hollow. They offered no real help and seemed indifferent to my plight. They dismissed my feelings, labeling me as overly sensitive and picky. It became painfully clear that they had no intention of supporting me, nor did they grasp the depth of my struggles. In that moment, I recognized the profound mistake I had made regarding the life I had built. I fought for the independence I had cherished, yet it left me feeling isolated and unsupported in my later years. I had longed to live without relying on anyone, but the truth was, I needed people. Without family and the emotional support of loved ones, the comforts of independence meant little in the face of loneliness and neglect. As we conclude this video, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on what you've learned from this story. We've delved into the significance of building a solid foundation of emotional support in our lives. As we age, we increasingly recognize the significance of family, the dangers of solitude, and the deep influence that both familial and personal relationships wield over our happiness and overall well-being. So, what lessons does this narrative impart? What is one takeaway you can integrate into your own life? Perhaps it highlights the value of emotional bonds over financial success, or maybe it underscores the necessity of cherishing and cultivating relationships rather than assuming they will always be there. I invite you to share your thoughts. Please leave a comment below with one insight. This video has provided valuable insights that you can incorporate into your life. If you found it helpful, please share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more meaningful content. Your support is greatly appreciated and enables us to keep creating what matters. Thank you for watching, and I eagerly await your comments.